Well, happy halftime, ladies and gentlemen. It is halftime of the Capital One Orange Bowl. Oh, sorry, Goodyear Cotton Bowl. I'm getting my bowls. Dude, I've been off 3 days. My life is just spinning at this point. There's so much football, and I don't hate it. I am Rob Brown from ESPN Upstate, host of the Rob Brown Show from noon to 3 every weekday. Joining me right over there is the host of Offside, Marc Ryan. That, of course, is Marc Ryan. And, Bama up a couple of touchdowns. That second one, Marc Ryan, a bit of a heartbreaker because it kind of felt like Cincinnati defensively was throwing the punches the way they needed to. Alabama's first touchdown, it looked like Alabama was just going to dice up Cincinnati, but the Cincinnati defense made a couple of adjustments, started pulling it together, and after that second touchdown with a $1:53 left on the clock, feels like a completely different game now than it did when there were 2 minutes left on the clock. Cincinnati had Alabama deep in their own territory on a third long. Next thing you know, Alabama looks back to being dominant. The first and the last two drives, both game changers for Cincinnati.
You said on Offsides that Alabama wins this game by 40. That is a direct quote, okay? That is a direct quote from Rob Brown. My score is Alabama by 8. Who is going to be closer, you or me? I said Alabama by 8. You said by 40. Right now it's 14. Who's closer when all's said and done? Obviously, I'm going to say me and you're going to say you, right?
Yeah, that's the way it worked for, I don't know, the 15 years we've been broadcasting together at this point.
Yeah.
No, it's it's a bit of momentum game, right? Bama comes out with the early momentum after that incredible drive. And I'm watching social media and I'm seeing people pop up. Thanks for coming, Cincinnati. Good job, good effort. It looked like everybody had given up. Cincinnati puts together the field goal drive. The offense starts clicking a little bit. All of a sudden, it looks like we're going to go back to having some real competition. The offense for Alabama was slicing and dicing early, and then Bill O'Brien decided to try to open it up with Bryce Young and throw the ball, and that didn't go all that well. In fact, I was waiting for the story from Laura Rutledge that Nick Saban called up to Bill O'Brien and said, if you throw it again, you're fired, because Bryce Young has not looked all that comfortable in the face of really Cincinnati's been bringing 3 all game, right? We saw a couple of plays where they rushed more than 3, but for the most part, they've been bringing 3 and getting Bryce Young off his game. But that last touchdown pass, they tried to reroute the wide receiver off the outside with a big hit, and it went exactly the opposite way that they wanted. If Bryce Young gets that confidence back that won in the Heisman Trophy, Marc Ryan, I think that 40 is still a possibility. We know Bama. It took Bama a half to get rolling against Georgia. They ended up beating them by 20. Cincinnati's got a field goal. I mean, let's not pretend like their offense is clicking in the red zone because they're not.
I don't fully get what Cincinnati is doing defensively, even though overall they're getting the job done. You got to keep Alabama out of the end zone on at least 50% of their possessions to have a chance of beating them. Last CFP and the SEC championship game, Florida, Notre Dame, and Ohio State, none of them did that, Rob. This game, 5 Alabama possessions, 2 touchdowns. Cincinnati theoretically is getting the job done in terms of doing what you need to do, but I don't get what they're doing defensively in this sense. You have maybe the 2 best corners in the country. You have the Jim Thorpe Award winner, Sauce Gardner, Kobe Bryant. Alabama is 82nd in the nation in rushing this year. They're averaging 147.6 yards a game rushing. They have, I think, 140 at half right now, rushing. So that they've almost produced their total game total for the year against Cincinnati. I do not understand why Cincinnati is not taking away the run, putting 8 in the box, and letting their corners on the outside do their thing. I'm just a little bit perplexed by that at this point.
No, as a matter of fact, I tweeted that. I'm live tweeting the game on the ESPN. So 5 in the box effectively, and then almost running a nickel package every single beating you up on the screen right 30, including a pair of touchdowns, but touchdown was a blown play by the Cincy defense. You got the tight end standing wide open in the flats, and the second one it's a good throw, but again, don't understand, and I agree with you. I said that on Twitter. why Cincinnati has not gotten away from 3 down linemen, putting a couple of linebackers behind them, and thinking that's going to stop what Alabama's doing. Alabama fancy, right? We know that they have lived and died this year by the big ball. That's been the big surprise, is that a Nick Saban team is living and dying by the deep ball, by the big money play. But in this game, they're not doing anything fancy. They got 130 yards through the air, but they're at a $172 on the ground, including Brian Robinson Jr. with 134 yards in the first half. The things that Cincinnati need to take away from Alabama, Mark Ryan, they just haven't been doing so far.
Yeah, and Cincinnati's pass defense is second in the nation. Cincinnati's rush defense is 47th in the nation. It's almost like, so they said to themselves, you know what? We don't need to devote that much attention to Alabama's running game because Alabama hasn't been a good running team this year. When they're punching you in the mouth, you need to make a change. And I just, with their defensive backs, with how proficient they are and how efficient they are defending the pass, I'm perplexed as to why they're not taking away Alabama's run right now. I'm just really, really surprised by that. Outside looking in as to the first half, they're still in it. The average margin of victory in the 14 college football playoff semifinal games to date is 20.92 points, so 21 points, right? So Rob Brown, for whatever reason, Cincinnati has the responsibility of carrying the torch for everyone in the group of five, which is totally unfair. No, we don't do that with the Power Five teams, right? Like, you're only carrying the torch for yourself, by and large. If the Big Ten got smoked in 4 straight playoff games, you'd say, okay, maybe the Big Ten is not looking great. Notre Dame, when they suck in the playoff every single year, they're carrying the torch for themselves, right? They're not carrying the torch for all the independents. They're carrying the torch for themselves. So the fact that Cincinnati's got to carry this torch for the entirety of the group of five sucks. But theoretically, Rob, if they lose by 21 or less in this game, then they are no worse than the typical college football playoff team.
Yeah, I agree with you. I heard that take on your show a couple of weeks ago and gave you credit for it because I think it's spot on. I said the same thing. I don't love that every Power 5 team from this point forward is going to be judged on what Cincinnati does today, but that is what's going to happen. That's not to say there's extra pressure on Cincinnati to play for future group of 5 teams. There's not. There's pressure on Cincinnati to play for Cincinnati today in this game and to prove Vegas and pretty much everybody else incorrect. The problem that I have is that the opportunities to do that, they're not taking. That's what's frustrating me at this point, is that the spots that seem to be the easiest, right? I think coaches do this all the time, Ryan, and they go look for a solution that is more complex than the one that they need to fix the problem, right? They start going, okay, we got to play 4D chess here, when I'm going, guys, the solution is checkers at this point. Putting 3 in the box against an Alabama rushing attack that's got more offensive yards than your offense as a whole, putting 4 in the box is not a crazy complex solution. If Brian Robinson's beating you $179 on the ground in the first half, the solution is stop that guy. And if Bryce Young beats you deep, then you adjust to that later in the game. It's like Cincinnati came in prepared for a Mike Leach aerial assault, right? Like, they came in prepared for Alabama to throw the ball over the football field. Nick Saban, if him and Bill O'Brien can run the ball 100 times in a game, that's going to be what Nick Saban prefers to do.
It's like they came in not believing they have 2 of the best corners in the country, right? I mean, they have the Jim Thorpe Award winner. They have a Jim Thorpe Award finalist. Like, why wouldn't you, if this is what Alabama's going to do? It's almost like they're daring them. Well, these guys don't think they can run the ball on us, so why would we defend the run? Oh, crap, now you can. So let's go back to what we do best, right? Second in the nation in pass defense, and really trust our guys that are the biggest reason we're undefeated to begin with. They're not trusting Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant against an Alabama team that is missing John Mechie and his 96 receptions on the year. Jamison Williams is their big play guy. John Mechie has been their Mr. Reliable guy, and they're missing that guy. You don't put Kobe Bryant on Jamison Williams. You don't need to double him. I'm just a little bit confused by this. All that is to say, Rob, that again, my score was 34-26. half of 34 is 17. That's what Alabama has right now. It's not like Alabama is putting up more points than I thought they were. I'm disappointed with what I'm seeing from Cincinnati offensively. We got the report that Desmond Ridder is challenging his offensive line. Alabama's got the 8th best defense in the country against SEC competition. Cincinnati's number 7 against AAC competition. I'm just a little surprised that Cincinnati hasn't been able to do a little bit more offensively, no?
I'm really not, to be honest with you. I thought it was going to be a struggle. I thought it was going to be a struggle for them. They're a good offense, and there's no doubt about it. I don't know that we're giving enough credit to Alabama because the frustration in the games that they lost against Texas A&M, the frustration in the game against Auburn in that Iron Bowl, those frustrations to me were all on the offensive side of the ball, right? That seemed to be where Alabama was having its problem. The defensive line specifically for Alabama is good, and they are easily the biggest and toughest guys that Cincinnati has faced all year, right?
Biggest. By the way, I hope you respect my Cincinnati colors that I'm wearing here for the broadcast today. No doubt who I'm rooting for in this one, Rob. But
no, it's interesting. I said this on the show. To me, has there been, with the exception of maybe Notre Dame or anybody up against Notre Dame, I don't think there has been in the history of the college football playoff a team that more has America's support than Cincinnati does to get there. But like 95% of bets are in favor of Alabama, right? Like we know what Cincinnati is, a vast underdog, and they're an underdog in the fight. But I said this on Twitter a few minutes ago. The best thing to do when a guy across the boxing ring from you is bigger and stronger than you are is to try to figure out what his game is and work around that. And it's like Cincinnati, no, we're going to come out and we're going to dictate the pace of the game the way we want to do it. Well, I got news for you. They're beating you at what you want to do. The solutions are right there. And I'm a little taken aback because Luke Fickell, whose name has popped up for the USC job, for the LSU job, for the Florida job, for every job that's come open at a Power 5 level, I have said many times, Nick Saban's not a great coach on game day with the X's and O's. Nick Saban's a great coach in that this team was prepared for this moment in February and everybody else is trying to catch up. I'm a little shocked that it seems that Nick Saban is out Xing and O'ing Luke Fickell right now when Fickell knew he was going to be the one that needed to make adjustments to Bama, not the other way around, and it doesn't feel like it's going that way.
Yeah, it's almost like Cincinnati's trying to play this safe. You can't play this safe. You got the guys to leave them on an island. You have the corners. What was it, Darrelle Revis? 2/3 of the earth is covered by water. The other third is covered by Darrelle Revis. Remember that? Yep. They've got the guys to do that. Let them do their thing. Stop being afraid of these guys. Stop assuming that Alabama's 3rd and 4th best wide receivers are gonna beat you in this particular game. And that's what I hope we see. I hope we see Cincinnati adjust to take away the run in the second half. I hope we see if Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant can man up Jamison Williams and man up the other Alabama wide receivers. And I hope we see a Cincinnati that is in this thing in the fourth quarter. Because, Rob, if they get a touchdown here in the third quarter, you start to have tight sphincters in Tuscaloosa. And then if it gets to the fourth quarter and it's a one-score game, man, anything can happen. But do you really think, your score, Rob, Alabama by 40, is that, you got to admit, that's disrespect to the group of 5 to say that, right? Do you really believe that an Alabama team that beat Florida by 2, that lost to A&M, that needed a 4th down stop to beat LSU and a miracle to beat Auburn, is Cincinnati better than LSU this year? Is Cincinnati better than Auburn this year? Or is that just the whole you're fatigued after you play the SEC gauntlet thing?
I said earlier Cincinnati would have changed within 3rd in the SEC. I do think they're good. And that's not – I don't feel like I'm taking away something from Cincinnati here. But Alabama, to me, and from the experience of the past handful of years, semifinal Alabama is different than regular season Alabama, right? Regular season Alabama is Clark Kent, and that he's very strong, but you kind of see that there's something more there that just not get. And then in the semifinal, Alabama goes in the phone booth and they come out with a red cape and an S on the chest. This is where Nick Saban's team shine and are most prepared for. That was not a slight against Cincinnati. That was an Alabama team that came out and beat the hell out of Georgia by 20 points 3 weeks ago, right? If that Alabama team's not this good, they don't cakewalk Georgia, but postseason Alabama is a different Alabama, and they have been just about every Alabama team that's won a title had a close game or two in the SEC. That's not unusual. What's unusual is them really getting challenged, and now they're coming up against, and I don't say this disrespectfully, but a Cincinnati Power 5 team that is not as big and strong as Georgia. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. They're not as big and strong as Ohio State was last year or Clemson was a few years ago, which is why I said Cincinnati, if they want to win this game, and I said on our show, Mark Ryan, the starting Cincinnati 22 are talented on paper enough to beat Alabama. I don't argue that. The question I have is twofold. Number one, do they have the stamina? Are they used to playing a really good game 2 quarters deep against the team as deep as Alabama? And number two, when the benches start coming into play, which they are, Arquan Bush for Cincinnati, as far as we can tell, out of the game. The running back got banged up a little while ago. Once the injuries kick in and we got to start going into bench depth, that's where I think Cincinnati loses the thread just a little bit. And that's why I think Alabama has a bigger first half or a second half than they did first half.
Well, I need to see a defensive adjustment by Cincinnati. I've absolutely got to see that when we get going. I want to see what they're going to do offensively. Desmond Ridder just seems rattled. I'm not seeing any separation. That's the discouraging thing. You're not getting any separation. You're not having open wide receivers at all. The running attack for Cincinnati has been okay, but when Desmond Ridder has been pressured, he's been unable to make a play, and there's been nobody open right now for Cincinnati. So, look, right now, I think the majority of this first half, you would say, thumbs up to the group of 5. I think the Levy kind of broke a little bit with that big play right at the end of the half. And now you're saying to yourself, first 5 minutes, Cincinnati, we need something big here. So you got to make a play right here, first 5 minutes of the second half, kind of set the tone that, Alabama can't go for the knockout punch here, right? And so we will see. We will see if that can happen, man. This isn't the bloodbath that many forecasted. People want to be guilty of premature smaculation. Rob, Alabama goes right down the field. Oh, it's going to be 64-0. No, it's not, right? But, Cincinnati right now, it's teetering on the edge of, a pick 6 here, right? A fumble there. And it's going to start to look a lot like the SEC championship game did.
I said it earlier. In fact, I was just texting back and forth with a listener a few minutes ago, and I said, here's the deal. If Cincinnati scores coming out, we got a game. If Cincinnati does anything but points on the board here, even a punt, I think this thing's over. And I think it could get ugly quickly. The best thing Cincinnati has going for it is also the worst thing, and it's that Alabama's just happy to run the ball down their throat, which means the clock will tick and Alabama won't rack up big play through the air touchdowns, because if they're just winning by running the ball, they're going to keep running the ball. But Cincinnati, you're right, needs to come out, needs to do something immediately, because if Bama comes out and maintains that swagger by getting a 3-and-out or a punt on this first drive, they're not going anywhere. The more confident this team gets, the more scary they get.
Widening the lens a little bit, too, all of this momentum for an expanded playoff, right? Because, like you surmised, Rob, I surmised that if Oklahoma State had won, Cincinnati may not have even been in this game to begin with, right? Or maybe even if Alabama had lost to Auburn, then they beat Georgia. Alabama gets in with 2 losses, right? There's a lot of people, Diesel included, that feel as though the committee was going to do anything they could to keep Cincinnati out. This is where it is important for the group of 5, right? This is where it is important, because what is the big impetus to expand the playoff if this ends up being 40-3, right? Like if you end up being right and Alabama wins by 40, people are, do we really want to see more of that? You know what I mean? Do we really want to see Ohio State against upstart Akron? You know what I mean? Like, is that something anybody really needs to see? Cincinnati was the best one of these, the best little guy, the best Smurf of college football, if you will, that we've ever gotten. They beat Notre Dame, and Notre Dame is good, okay? Cincinnati needs to show something here in the second half, man. They really do. And we're going to know it, Rob, I think in the next – when your clock hits 6 o'clock on your phone, you're going to know whether this is going to be a game or not. We got 24 minutes,
Completely agree. Completely agree. All right, real quick before we call it off, because we got just a couple of minutes till we kick off the second half. Michigan taking on Georgia tonight. I think it's probably the more anticipated of the 2 games, hence it being the night game. I got to tell you, to me, watching Georgia all but implode against Alabama, the reputation that that team has of just not being able to put it together for the big game, tonight's the night that they have to break that, right? Because this Michigan team is hungry. This Michigan team is upstart. This Michigan team knows that they needed a lot of help after losing to Sparty to get here. They got the help they needed. Jim Harbaugh seems to be feeling himself, and this team's feeling himself. And defensively, they're going to get after Georgia just like Michigan did. I've gone back and forth on this game, Mark Ryan, and I genuinely feel like either one of these teams is good enough to walk away and go to a championship game.
Yeah, Rob, we need to hold bowl teams, conferences accountable for how their teams do in bowl games. The reality is, sadly, and I hate this, right? Like Diesel's been busting the SEC teams in the chops on Twitter for this, how they're showing up in the bowl games. And he says, saying you don't care is lame. And he's totally right? He's totally right. The SEC has been awful in these games, and the Big Ten is undefeated right now in the Bowl Challenge Cup, right? And that is not nothing. To me, if you look at Michigan against Georgia, to just assume, SEC Big Ten, Georgia's got a really pedestrian quarterback. You compare the numbers, Cade McNamara to Stetson Bennett, Georgia does not have an advantage at the quarterback position. Take it a step further. Michigan's roster, look at it, Rob. It's littered with players from SEC country. Florida, Georgia, Tennessee. These are not corn-fed slow boys that are overweight. This is not your father's Big Ten. This is a different Big Ten animal. And, we had on an author, John U. Bacon, who has spent 3 years inside the Michigan program, came on our show, Rob, and he said, Mark, the biggest problem for Michigan is they're not cheating, and everybody else is. And I can tell you they're not. Well, what happens, Rob? This year they have name, image, and likeness. What does Jim Harbaugh do in the first year of name, image, and likeness? Oh, you level the playing field. Look where we are, right? Look where we are, because they wouldn't cheat. And quote unquote, everybody else was cheating, right? So I think this notion that, poor old Michigan is just going to get slaughtered by the SEC, I think that's a slight. I think Michigan is better than that. I think this is a very special Michigan team, and Michigan wins this one, Rob, 21-20 over Georgia.
Yeah, it might go a long way towards preventing another SEC championship. Mark Ryan, we are back underway in Arlington.
Wait, what's your score? Texas. What's your score of the other game?
Oh, I'm actually gonna take Georgia. I think that at the point of attack, Michigan is gonna get hit harder than they've been hit by anybody except Ohio State, which was a great win for Michigan. But I gotta think if you get 2 shots at the big game, which is effectively what's happening for Kirby Smart here, you get 2 shots at the big game, you gotta be able to pull one of them out. I'm gonna take Georgia, but I'm talking like 27-25 last minute kind of game.
Man, one of the hardest things to do in life is to change your reputation, and their reputation is they choke in all of these games. And this is going to be another one where it's really competitive late. Do they choke? Do they find a way to overcome their own personal demons in this one? Man, it's going to be a fantastic game. I'm really excited to see it. And a little challenge for you guys to watch in the second half. Again, Rob said Alabama by 40. I said Alabama by single digits, 1-score game. Who's closer as this thing rolls along? We will see.
By the way, and I meant to tell you, Mark Ryan, speaking of on-air propositions, where's the girliest drink they sell in Greenville? Because that Urban Meyer nectar is going to be absolutely delicious, buddy. Absolutely delicious.
I can't, I know you're not surprised. You made the bet. I literally can't believe that situation devolved into where he got fired before the end of the year. Consider this, Rob. When have we ever had a situation in the NFL where 2 coaches were fired, Gruden and Meyer, essentially because there was an implosion midseason? You know what I mean? Not because of on-field performance, but because of something crazy off the field that is going on that the team just couldn't see themselves continuing on. That's craziness, man. But kudos to you. You did call it. That might be the best bet you ever made. What is the best bet you ever made, by the way? Mine, 30-1 odds. Florida to win the 2006 football and basketball national championship.
Oh.
I'm an idiot because I put $10 on it, Rob, and I won 300. Right? But best bet I ever made. Your best bet was at Urban Meyer. I mean, that was a long shot, dude. That was a long shot. That was absolutely a long shot.
Yeah, I kind of got mad that the only thing I bet you was a drink. I kind of feel like I threw away some potential money there.
Yeah.
No, best bet I made was one that I didn't even make, which was last year preseason. I told a friend of mine that I was, I'll play futures every now and then, just preseason. Let's pick a favorite. And I told a buddy of mine that I was going to throw down $10 on the Atlanta Braves to win the World Series because they were like 270-1 or something like that. Yeah. And I ended up not doing it. Well, the night of Game 6 of the World Series, my buddy he calls me after the game's over and Atlanta wins the World Series, and he goes, "Dude, I took your advice. I put futures down. I put $20 on Atlanta, 270-1 to win the World Series this year." And he goes, "I just bought myself every Atlanta Braves World Series champion piece of gear they put on their website." And I said, "I'll take 10% of your earnings." And he said, "I'll buy you a beer." So I'll take it. But,
so wait a minute. 270-1, $20, that'd be 5,400.
Yeah, dude made roll. Dude absolutely made roll.
$5,400.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
Ridiculous. No, it's very, very good.
That's not bad.
I'm not good with the numbers, but that seems good. All right, boys and girls, we are back underway inside of 13 and a half minutes. Cincinnati opening with the football, down 2 scores. And
they're moving it. They're moving it down.
They are inside of midfield already. So we will get back to the game. We'll check back in after it's over. Marc Ryan,
Happy
great
New
time
Year,
as always, buddy.
Happy New Year, Rob. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, guys. We will be back later to check in at the end of this game, get you set up for Georgia, Michigan. Make sure you tune in on Monday. We'll have the breakdown of both games, both on the Rob Brown Show from noon to 3, Offsides with Marc Ryan from 3 to 7. Follow us on Twitter at ESPN Upstate for the rest of the game, and we'll see you back here later on. Have a good night. Happy New Year, everybody.